what happened with the NCAA and this settlement, $2.8 billion that now goes to previous athletes as a back pay for NIL, and now a new pool of money created to pay athletes directly from school to athlete? I'm kind of a blank slate here, so please have the floor on it, Jay. What happened here?
Yeah, this is it's called the House case. So it's an antitrust case, and the plaintiffs, NCAA athletes, over the past, I think it is 8 or 9 years, basically from 2016 to 2024, was the class for back damages. They sued the NCAA under an antitrust theory that the NCAA schools colluded together in restraint of trade to restrict what athletes could earn or accept in the marketplace. And that was going to put the NCAA, if they lost that case, and I think they would have lost it, and most legal observers would agree with that, that would put them in the range of $4 or $5 billion in damages. So the NCAA settled the case with the House plaintiffs. So you're correct, $2.8 billion are going to be paid in back damages to former NCAA athletes during that time period. And then also there's going to be a component of revenue sharing in the future for NCAA athletes. This is all under what is a 10-year injunction that is going, and the court in the Ninth Circuit and Judge Claudia Wilken are going to keep jurisdiction of this matter. So if things come up over the course of time, the court can pass on those issues. There's a place for people to go when they have issues with the settlement, if at all. But that time frame is going to give the NCAA time to adjust and maybe try to figure things out. And by that, I mean they can enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the players. What I think is probably more likely that the NCAA is going to try to do over this time period is they're going to go to Congress and say, look, you told us to get our act together. We settled this case. Now make this settlement into law. I think that's going to be the next step in the NCAA's lobbying efforts with Congress. But under the settlement, Rich, so you have the $2.8 billion that's going to former players. Then you've got revenue sharing, and it's going to be 22% of television revenue, ticket revenue, sponsorship revenue calculated through the Power Five as an average. That's going to be about $20.5 million to start per school. Now, the schools don't have to pay their athletes that money, but they're allowed to, up to that $20.5 million annual amount. There's an escalator clause of 4% per year for the first, for years 2 and 3. And then after that, the revenue amount's going to be recalculated. So if you take all the expenses that athletes have been getting, whether it's scholarships, food, things like that, and add the revenue share amount, the NCAA believes that's going to get athletes to around 50% of overall revenue that's going to come their way. There's also going to be a new entity, a new commission that's going to oversee compliance of the revenue cap. And when has that not worked out great for the NCAA?
So, boy, do I have a lot of follow-up questions. Let's take it one at a time here. The $2.8 billion that's going to be given out to athletes that have been participating in sports over the since 2016, whose money is that, and who decides who gets what out of the $2.8 billion, Jay?
It's all detailed in the settlement. So it'll be members that opted into the class. There have been certain players, certain athletes during that time period, 600 of them about, that said, I don't want to be a part of the class. I want to have available my own action against the NCAA. So that was not a huge number relative to the amount of athletes that opted in. I don't know exactly how much it's going to be for each athlete. There's certainly going to be a showing. I mean, you can opt in and maybe you wouldn't have received anything because you didn't have any great value. You know, you might have been on a roster, but didn't have a great value that you could have commanded in the marketplace. So certainly it's going to be based upon, there are going to be issues that it's based upon your actual value. But that's all hashed out in the settlement. But $2.8 billion is a pretty big number for the NCAA to pay out. And it's a pretty big admission that they've been violating federal antitrust law for a long time.
So they have $2.8 billion sitting around, the NCAA?
They've been preparing for this. Yeah, the NCAA has been preparing for this for quite some time. They knew. I mean, this case has been going on for a while. The settlement's been in place for a while. It just got approved. The court finally approved it.
Right.
So now they can move forward and implement it and start paying athletes and sign. The biggest, I think, thing for me in this is now schools can sign players to contracts. So when you sign a player to a multi-year contract with this $20.5 million amount annually, that's going to keep going up because revenues keep going up. In those arm's length negotiations, you can also put buyouts in those contracts. And when you put a buyout in, these players aren't going to go anywhere. They're not going to pay that. It may be a few players that might be able to maneuver, but there are going to be fewer places where you can transfer. And then it's going to cost you money to transfer. And if another school pays your buyout, that's going to count against their cap. So it's going to make it restrictive once athletes sign a contract. Now, if you want to go to school and not sign a contract, you can still move around like you want to now. But I think you're going to see schools signing their players to contracts, and that's going to give them a lot more stability in the sports that really matter to them.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.